Welcome to MMA Main, the best MMA show around the world. My name's Mighty. Thank you for watching me. Holy oh man. Well, just like me and a lot of other people, we saw something, I don't know, spectacular, crazy, insane, however you want to put it, this past weekend at UFC 193. Wow. And here's the thing, so let's just jump into this. This past weekend, UFC 193 in Australia, so many things happened. And the sad thing is, because of the main event and Ronda losing in the fashion that she lost, that has overshadowed everything around this event. And there were some awesome fights on this event. So the thing is, you know, with this win, with Holly Holm winning, and I think the same thing with the Vegas line, because if you see the spread, or I mean, not point spread obviously, but if you see the odds and the skew between Ronda and Holly Holm on the Vegas line and all the betting sites and stuff like that, I think it's probably because of her performances prior to this, and that's why the same way I was feeling that way with Holly Holm coming into this fight. Her previous two fights in the UFC, I mean, let's chalk it up at fair at best. 2 decisions, 1 split decision. What we saw her do is what I think everyone kind of expected that she could do prior to getting into the UFC, at least in my mind, and I don't know if all you guys agree, or some of you agree, or none of you agree, but that's how I felt. I thought that, yes, she had this ability, but until she got into this top tier level of, you know, fighters of her peers, aka the UFC, because let's be honest, the UFC, whether you love them or hate them, they are the biggest league. They are the biggest promotion. They have by far the most talent, not just talented people, but the roster itself is huge. So when you get to this level, you know, it's a whole different ball game of some of these other promotions you might have been in. It's the same thing with other sports, you know, when you go from college ball to the NFL, or you know, the NCAA basketball to the NBA. You're with the best of the best. So, wow. I did not see that coming. And we can see, you know, there's so many trolls out there just dousing with hate. And, I mean, you could call me a sap or whatever you want. I feel bad for Ronda. Yes, she has this swag about her that's conceited and cocky. But look what she's done. You know, she's she's paved the way for women's MMA. Prior to her, Dana White didn't even want women's MMA in the UFC. And I think she's one of those figures, if not the main figure, that brought the women's division into the UFC. And now they have the strawweight division. Now they're talking about making a women's flyweight division. So, you know, you can't take away these things that Ronda has done. You can't. And if you do, you're a mean person, a big meanie. And you can't say she hasn't fought the best, because she's fought everybody in her division, more or less, and some people twice. So now she fought Holly Holm, and you know, I don't know. I bet you Uncle Dana's probably wishing he let Misha fight her for the 3rd time after this to keep the golden child going. I mean, let's be honest. The UFC it's a promotion. It's a business. Yes, MMA is a sport, but at the end of the day, who's going to put more butts in the seats, Ronda or Holly? Well, at this point, for sure, it's Ronda. Not to say that Holly can't be this star. Maybe she can. It's possible. But right now, Ronda has already built that. She's probably bigger than the sport itself, because people outside of the MMA world know who Ronda Rousey is because of all the outlets she's on, whether it's on a talk show or a movie or, you know, a radio show, or promoting this, or on a magazine, or on her book. So she is, in my opinion, bigger than the sport itself. And that's not a bad thing, because that's drawing more people in to see the sport, and then they can see all the other promotions as well if they actually become an MMA fan. Because let's be honest, UFC is great, don't get me wrong, and they're the pioneers, they're the originators for a promotion, right? But there's other promotions out there that have good fighters and good fights as well, you know? And some people won't agree, but, you know, I'm a fight fan. I like to watch fights at the end of the day. Maybe the talent isn't as deep, but there's definitely solid talent in all the promotions out there. Maybe they only have 3 or 4 in each division. Okay, well, that's fine. But there is some still talent out there. There's other fighters coming in for promotions. You know, they brought in Eddie Alvarez from Bellator, and, you know, they bring in fighters from all the things. They go out and check. I mean, Sage Northcutt, I think before they picked him up, he was at Legacy, if I remember correctly. I mean, these promotions groom up-and-coming fighters. So, in any case, I'm rambling about that. Back to UFC 193, there was a lot of good fights on there. And I think, as far as the co-main event goes, I think Valerie Letourneau proved that she belonged at the co-main event against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I'm pretty good at the pronouncing finally. I don't know, I'm getting a little better. But in any case, she stood there and banged 5 rounds. Now, granted, Joanna fought a great fight. She looked good. But Valerie, she held her own, you know. She got lit up a little bit, but I don't think her ranking really proved or showed where she fit in amongst the other strawweights in the division. And I think that it was warranted for her to get that title fight. I think she stood. I mean, look what Joanna did to Carla Esparza, Jessica Penne. I mean, she destroyed those 2 girls. So she couldn't do that to Valerie. So Valerie was able to use her reach and her distance. Not to say that it was super imposing on her, but it was able for her to get a couple strikes. You know, Joanna didn't come out looking crystal clean. She has a couple bumps and bruises on her. So, and it went 5 rounds. So that says something. Mark Hunt against Bigfoot Silva. It went kind of like I expected, and I think the big thing is with that is obviously, you know, we forget how much time passes between fights. It's been 2 years since those guys fought. And 2 years in a fighter's life is quite a bit. You know, you figure maybe the average fighter only gets 5 to 6 years, I'm guessing. Obviously, there's people that's been fighting for a much longer period of time, but I'd say maybe 5 to 6 years is average. So if it's been 2 years since it's passed, that's, you know, 30 to 40% of the time has been gone since they fought last. And we know that Bigfoot had to take TRT, and that plays a factor, I think, in his performance. Mark Hunt got in there, and he still has power, and he did like I thought he would. He goes in there, and Mark Hunt's Mark Hunt. He goes in there, and he headhunts, and he tries to hit you with those big power punches. So that kind of played out like it did. Uriah Hall against Robert Whittaker. I knew that would be a good fight. I kind of thought it might be fight of the night, but there was too many other good fights on the fight card. Uriah Hall just couldn't pull the trigger. He couldn't get comfortable enough. But not to take anything away from Whittaker, because the dude's a phenomenal fighter. He comes in, he's super aggressive, he strikes, and kudos to him, he gets the win. The only disappointing fight on the pay-per-view in my mind was Stefan Struve against Jared Rosholt. That fight fell short. I mean, it was, I don't know if it was just because it was a super bad matchup. Stefan Struve just, I mean, that guy is as big as he is. He reminds me of Tim Sylvia. You know, if you're that big, towering over your opponents, you know, I don't know what you need to do, but you should be going in there dominating. You should need to learn how to use your range. Go train with John Jones. That guy will teach you how to use your range properly. John Jones is probably one of the best at it. He utilizes his reach, not just with his hands, but with his feet. Stefan Struve needs to get on that bandwagon and find out what he's doing wrong, because I think he can go in with the proper coaching and really tear up the division, because he has some talent. But man, that fight, it was not very pleasing to watch as a spectator. So overall, UFC card was good. Kyle Noak had a beautiful win on the prelims. But I'd like to mention there was actually some good fights on the early prelims too on the UFC Fight Pass. Walsh, man, he was beating the hell out of some legs. But yeah, there was some solid fights on the whole card. I was happy. Anyone that didn't buy this pay-per-view, I feel sorry for you, because the pay-per-view alone, if you got one bad fight out of 5, I mean 80%, I felt the other 4 were solid, definitely worth paying for. I mean, the main event alone, to be a part of that, my house went insane. It wasn't a huge fight party, but I always host all the fights as far as the pay-per-views go. I I try to watch all the fights. I don't ever necessarily watch them all live as far as all the promotions. As far as the UFC goes, I try to watch them all live, or any of the major promotions that have big fights, title fights, stuff like that, because I hate to get spoilers. I want to be able to watch it. And, you know, one little thing on social media and then it's ruined. So I try to watch everything live. So we had about 10, 12 people over the house, and I don't think, well, a lot of thing is, a lot of the people that come over, they're more the casual fans, you know, they're not the hardcore fans. I got 1 or 2 hardcore fans, the rest of them casual. They're not really familiar with Holly Holm, so they didn't know what to expect from her. They know Ronda Rousey, obviously, and a lot of them come over specifically to watch her. So to see her get defeated in that type of fashion, it's just wow. You know, whether you like it or you hate it, it's a wow factor. So as you can see, I'm still pretty excited about it. Looks like the UFC's still in slight shock. They haven't taken, well, since I think it was yesterday I checked, and they hadn't taken down Ronda Rousey's stat page as far as her undefeated record of 12-0 and the ranking of bantamweight's women's champion. It was still on there. You know, I think in respect to Holly Holm, you need to get your web guy or whoever's your moderator and change that stuff. You know, I know that the Ronda Rousey is one of their golden children, like Eddie Murphy from the movie. But you know, you got to pay some respect to your new champion, and Holly Holm, man, she's a poster child. There's nothing wrong with her. I mean, she's got an awesome resume. She seems like a legitimate person. You know, she's not out there doing bad things and, you know, getting in accidents and running away from the scene of the crime and stuff like that we know of. So, you know, I would say groom her as well. Why not? You know, the main thing here is a rematch, right? Whether it's immediate, down the road, whether Holly defends the title and loses it, we still have to see Ronda and her go back at it. Because honestly, I don't know. You could chalk it up and say it was the wrong game plan, this, that, and other thing. But I still think that Ronda can beat her. And I know maybe I'm crazy, but I'm not taking anything away from Holly. Holly played the perfect game plan, and Ronda fell into it. Whether it was lack of her game planning or whatever you want to call it, it just worked out perfect. I don't think you could have written it better for a movie. It just worked out well. So in any case, that was UFC 193 from this past weekend. Let's move on. Obviously, all the news and rumors are all about UFC 193 and Ronda and getting bashed on social media and this and that. But that doesn't leave us high and dry for this weekend, because we have the threefer. All free fights. Asterisks. Free fights, because obviously you have to have the stations. But Spike, NBC Sports Network, Fox Sports 1. That's the 3 stations you need to watch 3 free events. So, you know, maybe you want to watch them, maybe you don't, but we have 2 on Friday. We got the 2 for on Friday. We will start with World Series of Fighting. They're back in Phoenix, Arizona. World Series of Fighting 25. They're going a la Bellator. They're doing an 8-man, one-night tournament for the lightweight division. The winner will get to face off against Justin Gaethje sometime in 2016 for the title, whoever wins this tournament. So that's interesting to see. We'll have to see how that goes. And then on the same night, Bellator is back at Oklahoma, Bellator 146. And there's quite a few people that are on this card that you might know by name. Bubba McDaniels, he was on The Ultimate Fighter. We got Ricky Rainey, follows us on Twitter. Thank you so much. Bubba Jenkins, he's on MMA Roasted a lot with Adam Hunter. He's on his podcast. He's actually a pretty funny cat. I like that guy. Brandon Gertz, he's on this fight card. He's the guy that ruined Melvin Gillard's homecoming to Bellator just a few months back. So he's on this fight card. And then for the main event, we have Hisaki Kato against Melvin Manhoff. This is an interesting matchup. Hisaki Kato was almost an unknown before he fought Joe Schilling recently and knocked out Joe Schilling in a devastating fashion. But he said he would be known after this fight, and he was absolutely right. He got a phenomenal knockout. Now he's up against a very tough opponent. when he's on his night, he's a very dangerous fighter. I like Melvin. I've met him. I got to do an interview with him last year. He's a cool cat. It's going to be hard to say who's going to pull off the win on this fight. Obviously, I would love to see Melvin get it. He's an old vet, and since I have a little bit of a personal interest invested in him, knowing him, not knowing him personally, but getting to meet him and interviewing him, I would like to see him get the win. Hisaki Kato, haven't seen enough of him to see what he can do going into deeper waters if this goes into a second or a third round. But it'll be interesting to see. I'm interested to see this fight. So that will be Friday night, Bellator 146, Oklahoma. Saturday night, the following night, we have UFC Fight Night Monterrey down in Mexico. So this will be interesting. There's a couple good fights on this card. I will talk mostly about I'm going to touch on the co-main event and the main event here. All right, so the co-main event, we have Ricardo Lamas, the Highlander, against the always entertaining, Diego Sanchez. I don't know who to call this. Diego Sanchez, man, he just brings it to you. He's up in your face, nonstop action. I will say this, he's never been finished in any of his fights. The only time there's been a stoppage was a doctor stoppage, and that's when he fought BJ Penn for the title, and BJ kicked him across the forehead, and then it opened up like when Moses parted the Red Sea. It was insane. Ricardo Lamas, he's fought Cub Swanson. He got a submission on Cub, and that's legit. And he beat Dennis Bermudez, and that's nothing to shake your head about either, in a negative fashion anyway. He got a submission on him as well. Other than that, I don't think Ricardo has seen quite the level of competition Diego has. Diego has seen it all. He's been around, forever. I think it's probably close to 10 years now he's been with the UFC. But the one question mark on this, Diego hasn't fought in about a year and a half, so we know ring rust is a real thing. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I go with Diego in a decision. I don't think Lamas is going to be able to finish him, but I don't think Diego will be able to do a finish as well, so I'm going to go with some type of crazy split decision. Diego's good at that stuff and getting these controversial decisions, so we're going to go with that on this. For the main event of the evening, we have Neil Magny against Kelvin Gastelum. Neil Magny actually had to step in for a hurt Matt Brown, and I wanted to see that fight as well, but this fight's cool. Neil Magny, this guy is no stranger to fighting on short notice. He loves to come in and keep active. He has that a la Donald Cerrone type of attitude and just stay active. You can never count out Kelvin Gastelum, though. This guy's a beast. He's always this kind of dark horse underdog. There's nothing super, bling bling about him. He's just kind of like this average looking guy, but he goes in and he gets the job done. So this will be an interesting fight. I think this might go to a decision as well. I don't know who I give the edge to. I'm going to go coin flip. I'll give it to Gastelum. I think he might ride him out, just grind out a win. So I'm going to go with decisions on the co-main event and the main event. I'm going to go with more of a controversial split decision with Diego and more of a unanimous decision with Gastelum. I think he'll grind out a win for this. But, yeah, that's it. So we got the 3 for this weekend. Enjoy some free fights. And I want to say thank you, everyone, for the support. Don't forget to subscribe on all the different formats of social media, especially YouTube. Please go to the YouTube account and subscribe. And thank you again for watching. Have a great evening. I'll see you next week. Peace out.